Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So Republicans have learned nothing. That's it. That's the whole show. Just kidding. They've learned nothing from their failed midterm tsunami they were supposed to have. And they're just letting their authoritarian freak flags fly now. In addition to banning books, trying to force women to give birth to their rapist babies, they're now waging a full-fledged war on gay and transgender people, First Amendment rights, and now prosecutors. And in Florida, one lawmaker is literally trying to ban the Democratic Party from the entire state. So this was all on full display last weekend. You guys might know there was a CPAC event. They pulled in an embarrassingly low number of attendees, even with Donald Trump as a featured speaker. Marjorie Taylor Greene was on stage. She had like half an audience. It was so embarrassing for her. Half of the seats were empty. And she announced to what little rabid crowd there was that liberals are, quote, coming for your children. And then Daily Wire conservative commentator, a man named Michael Knowles, he told the crowd that, quote, if you want to call it a crowd, he told the attendees, let's put it that way, that, quote, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. This is some dangerous, insightful rhetoric that is going to lead to more violence. They are otherizing fellow Americans, and this leads to hate crimes and domestic terrorism, which we've already seen. And Republican lawmakers are putting these hateful, fear-filled ideas into action. They're submitting bills and introducing bills that are horrific. Hundreds of LGBTQ allies protested at the Iowa State Capitol this past weekend, and students from 47 different Iowa schools staged walkouts last week because their local conservative lawmakers are trying to take the state back to the 1950s. They've introduced a bill to make same-sex marriage illegal in Iowa. And it may not even be enforceable because of federal law. And then they've proposed other bills to eliminate gender-affirming care and diversity and inclusion practices. And here's the thing, guys. I'm not even 100% on board with kids transitioning. I'll just say that up front. I have zero issue with adults transitioning and using hormone-altering drugs. And I know that true transgenderism is rooted in biology and science, but I think that it should be handled on a case-by-case basis for young people, and only under the guidance of skilled, experienced doctors, including psychologists, because the human brain isn't completely fully developed until we're around 25 years old. And the last part of the brain to develop is the prefrontal cortex, which allows us to predict the consequences of our actions. But these right-wingers, they're not against it for the same reasons. They're not, and I'm not even 100% against it. I just say it needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. They're against it because they're bigots. And the same people who are against parents making these decisions for their kids are the same ones who want to ban books and drag shows for people under 18. And these are the same people who want to force children to give birth to babies. They don't believe that they're old enough to attend a drag show or make a decision about their gender, but they believe that they're old enough and mature enough to raise a child. It is insanity. It is the height of hypocrisy. And these aren't the only bills in the works. Missouri just introduced anti-LGBTQ bills. And Arizona Republican Anthony Kern has sponsored a bill that would outlaw drag shows, and he likened them to pedophilia, and he called it perversion and grooming. There's even a bill circulating in Tennessee and 4 other states that would eliminate gender-affirming care for low-income adults. So this isn't about the children. It never was. They just want to be able to tell people how to live their lives. But one of the most dangerous pieces of legislation, I think, was just presented in what I now call the hate state. A Florida bill was just introduced by Republican Clay Yarborough. It would allow parents to legally kidnap their transgender child and remove them from their state if they find that their child is receiving, or if they're at risk of, quote unquote, receiving gender affirming care. So understand what this means. What if you have one bigoted parent, they could overrule their spouse or maybe their ex-spouse in seeking care for their child. And they would be legally allowed to kidnap that child and take that child out of state, take them to Florida, and they would be protected from prosecution. You don't know anything about these parents. This parent could be a nut. This parent could be sexually assaulting this child. This parent could be abusing physically, violently abusing this child. You don't know. And this same bill would also allow Florida to, quote, fine, suspend, or revoke the license of any public lodging establishment or public food service establishment if the establishment admits a child to a live adult performance that depicts or simulates nudity, sexual conduct, or lewd exposure. As you guys all know, I've been covering a story of an Ohio couple who's teaching their children pro-Nazi bigoted lessons, literally pro-Nazi, pro-Hitler. This is part of their homeschooling program. That's not illegal. There is nothing that the authorities or the school district can do about it because they have parental rights. And as long as they're teaching them the basics of reading, writing, arithmetic, all that good stuff, they're doing no harm in the eyes of the state and the federal government or the school district. But you can't take your child to a drag queen story hour if someone else views it as lewd, quote unquote. Are you kidding me? So you can teach your child, in the eyes of the Republican Party, you can teach your child to hate. You can teach them to hate other people, to grow up to be vile, repulsive individuals. But you are not allowed, according to the Republicans, to teach your children to love and accept everyone as they are. And these are, quote unquote, Christian values? In what way? In what way is this the Christian way? Is this what Jesus told us to do? And it's not just bigotry. Republicans are trying to make it easier to remove prosecutors if they disagree with their prosecutorial decisions. And they're, of course, targeting Georgia first because they know that Trump is likely going to be indicted by District Attorney Fani Willis. So they've introduced legislation that would allow them to form a new oversight board because, they all hate big government. They hate overreach. And this board would punish or remove prosecutors for, quote, willful misconduct. The problem is they don't bother to define what willful misconduct means. So it's left to their interpretation, their judgment. And this legislation would also reduce the number of signatures required to recall a district attorney. And this is just one state that has drafted a bill to undermine prosecutors because they disagree with them. But they're the party of law and order, you guys. Yeah. The hypocrisy, it is insane. It is maddening. I am telling you, they're just lunatics. They learn nothing. They have gone further and further to the right, further extreme in everything. They act like drag queens just appeared. They act like transgender people just appeared out of nowhere. It is the, fear du jour that they're serving up to their base. The white fright that I always talk about. Keep them scared, keep them, pointing the finger at a particular group, a particular issue, anything other than to look at, income inequality, the gender gap pay, the lack of affordable housing, how many people are, children are going to bed hungry at night. Yeah. let's not talk about all of that. Let's not talk about corporate power, corporate overlords who are literally running the government, who literally are paying off our legislators to do their bidding. Let's not talk about that. Let's not focus on that. Let's focus on transgenders, on a minority, on a very, very tiny minority. Let's focus on drag queens. While we have literally a guy who was just accused of, quote, pummeling another man's crotch against his will, running CPAC, where they all flocked to this weekend. Donald Trump, Nikki Haley, Marjorie Taylor Greene, while they talk about groomers and they talk about sexual assault and predators because they happen to be transgender or drag queens, but it's, they're all at an event hosted by a guy who is literally being sued right now for groping another man against his will. Yeah. Tell us all about how moral and ethical you all are. Freaking hypocrites. So anyway, guys, I will let you know when I hear more about their lunacy. I'm sure it'll only be a matter of minutes. Take care. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please donate. Love you all. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.